I was asked by a dairy farmer in my area to just ask a question, because at the moment we're having a promotion of GM ryegrass, and so he wanted me to ask a question of Professor Huber about what his opinion is on this.
The whole philosophy of genetic engineering is flawed science. It's based on 35-year-old concepts that aren't valid. We threw that whole concept out when we sequenced the human genome. It's based on one gene, one function. With the sequencing of the human genome, the Scientific American said, where are all the genes? What we realize now is that with genetic function, it's a spatial relationship of genetic material to other genetic material as it's influenced by the environment. You have thousands of functions that are impacted every time you change that spatial relationship and disrupt the integrity of the genetic code. No one looks at any of the other collateral aspects that are going on. You may have increased sugar, but you can also get that increased sugar a number of other ways. But then what else happens? 1 in a million of those plants that are genetically engineered survives. Why did the other cells not survive? Because there are toxic products that are produced, lethal products. It doesn't mean that the one factor that you're looking at is safe. It only means that that's just the one that you looked at. It doesn't mean that there aren't a number of other factors that are produced. Every single genetic transformation has to be analyzed totally separate. There are lots of other ways to increase sugar. We're doing it all the time with sugar cane. We got rid of the glyphosate. We applied boron, very essential element to move sugar into the storage areas in the stock. We want to keep that sugar being produced. We need to reduce the nitrates. We add some molybdenum so we can get the nitrite and nitrate reductases functional. We can use that nitrate then as an amino acid. We keep the manganese level up. You're low in manganese all over southern Australia. You need to get the levels up. Get the levels up and you'll get the sugar. You'll see your brick ratings go up. Get rid of the glyphosate. If you're going to genetically engineer for glyphosate resistance while you're doing these other things, which is the common trend, in 4 hours, glyphosate will have immobilized 90% of the free glyphosate or the free manganese in that tissue. So that what you do is you just shoot yourself in the foot. You create a toxic environment and you compromise the whole function of the plant because you've focused with tunnel vision only on one aspect. You've ignored all of the other things that go along and transform in that transformation. You can do those same things much more efficiently without giving that plant a bad virus infection. That's really what you're doing with genetic engineering.
Thank you. Mine's a two-part question, one personal, one non-personal. I make my own drinking water. I use RO to do that. Will the molecules in the glyphosate be trapped by the RO filter? Part one. Part two, I deal with dairy farmers I sell a natural product to dairy farmers to eliminate illnesses in the cows. Now with this gentleman, the gentleman here said about not testing the river and creek waters enough for the glyphosate in the water. meaning that some of those creeks and that go into the farms. They could overflow or go through into their ponds that they might have, a pond where the river creek goes through. Will the glyphosate, and I'll give you an example, there's no fluoride in the water in Colac, out that part of Victoria, because they claim that the fluoride could build up in the milk. They're claiming they put 1 part per million of fluoride in the water, and because the cow drinks about 60 litres of water a day, the fluoride, because it doesn't break down, could end up buying a carton of milk with 4 parts of fluoride in. So they didn't put fluoride because a lot of the local farmers use dam and tap water. So I'm just wondering here, if the cows, for example, the water's coming out of a pump in the ground or wherever, and the average dairy cow drinks 60 litres of water a day, is the glyphosate break down, or could it possibly build up inside the cow?
Look, I think one of the things about your research which is telling that in Australia we don't do the research as to the level of glyphosate in the environment. Now, in the US, the United States Geological Survey has only just started, and they're finding it everywhere. Most rain samples have it. It's in every watercourse where glyphosate is used. Not only that, but we also know, we talk about the cows, if you want to test them, you will find glyphosate, but equally important, AMPA, which is the main metabolite, that will be in the milk. That will be, the levels which were shown here, in the watercourses that you got would be concerning when you looked at Kruger's work, Monica Kruger's work and others, that would be enough to cause botulism and cause other diseases in cows. But we also know that from testing that because glyphosate is systemic, in other words, when you spray it, it goes into every cell of a plant. Similarly, when it's in feed, it'll be in feed, in the water, it will go into every cell of the cow or the animal. So you can test any tissue. Eat the beef, drink the milk, eat the eggs.
That's one of my major concerns on that side. I only drink raw milk. I don't drink supermarket milk.
Yeah, well,
I only drink raw milk untreated. So that's why I asked the question.
the only way...
All other molecules of glyphosate, if I put it through my filter machine, which is the best apparently in the world I can get, will it take it out?
I don't know. You'd have to test it.
The things that will take it out will be humic acid and clinoptilolite. Clinoptilolite is a special zeolite crystal. That's the only thing that I'm aware of that will take it out.
Reverse osmosis won't take it out?
No. The other thing is that glyphosate bioaccumulates in the brain tissue, in the reproductive tissues, in the bone, the liver, the kidney, and the heart, so that it continually builds up as it's introduced into the body. So it's not eliminated from those tissues. You'll have a lot eliminated through the urine, and that's when you get into trouble with end-stage kidney failure. But it's bioaccumulating in those other, and in the milk would be the other place that it bioaccumulates.
Yeah, my name's Tom Nicholas. I'm from Healthy Soils Australia. Getting back to the last speaker, you people that eat food have got all the power in the world, because you can tell the shop that you're not buying the damn stuff unless you know how it's grown. And I'm telling you, Coles and Woolies, if 20% of you dumped the stuff on the desk and said, I want to know how it's grown, that would cause a revolution. Wouldn't need everyone. And the other thing, now I've got a question. Question is, I want maybe Andre or Don to answer, to make the connection between the health of the soil and the food and human health, mainly through the connection with the nutrients in the food coming through the microbial pathway.
If you don't have a healthy soil, I can guarantee you won't have a healthy plant. And you won't have healthy people. Glyphosate is an extremely powerful antibiotic. It's the most chronically toxic chemical that has ever been introduced into the environment. It's not an acute toxin. It's a chronically toxic chemical. The antibiotic activity is against mycorrhizae, against rhizobium, against bacillus, pseudomonas, and a whole series of other organisms that we rely on to keep a healthy soil. You look at Dan Olson's research in Wisconsin. In 6 years, comparing organic soil with the conventional glyphosate, in his organic he could store 18 inches of water. That would carry him through almost 3 months of drought. With 1 inch of rain, he was running off the soil even with no-till, because the glyphosate had destroyed the mycorrhizae that produce the glomalin, the bacteria that are involved with all of your polysaccharides, giving you that soil aggregation that then gives you the porosity in the soil so that water can enter. Without the bacteria, you don't have the earthworms. Nothing for them to feed on. So that you change the entire biology in that system.
Hi, I'm Rai Senyan from the National Toxics Network. I've got a little thought experiment for all of you and the panel. So imagine this. I'm the CEO of the people who sell organic milk. And my organic milk outfit has certification, of course. I sell, 50,000 litre of milk a year. Great. One day, one of those NGOs comes along and tests my milk. And they find it's full of glyphosate. My question is, will I lose my certification as a milk supplier? And will I be able to sue Monsanto? Or will I sue the farmers? Or will I sue the Yarra Council for providing me with the water?
Because chemicals are ubiquitous in the environment, what we say is that organic produce are grown without the use of it. But if we were to make a blanket claim that all organic products were completely free of chemicals, it's very hard to prove, because then we've got to test it all the time because of things like glyphosate are in the rain and the water. If you live in a rural area, as an organic farmer, you will be getting some exposure. And particularly now that we can measure in parts per billion and parts per trillion, and a part per trillion is 1 drop in 3 Olympic-sized swimming pools. So what we've done in nearly every standard now is we have put thresholds for what we call adventitious contamination. And what that means, if the farmer has used it, then they're decertified. If it's because of normal drift from the environment and it's, say, 1,000 times lower than what is permitted, and the farmer didn't do it, the farmer won't lose their certification. That's the thing there. In terms of, can we sue Monsanto? Well, most of the glyphosate here no longer comes from Monsanto. It's imported from China, and it's actually far more toxic than the original one because of all the contaminants in the industrial process. And the other one I'd say is, given the Marsh case over GMO contamination, I would say that we'd be looking at another $800,000 spent and probably lost.
Yes, I wanted to ask the councillor from Yarra. Yeah? Hi. I'm a member of the Russell Gardens, Community Gardens in North Fitzroy. North Fitzroy, right, Community Gardens. And, of course, our policy is to be organic. However, we basically have to put up with saturation spraying around the perimeter of the gardens. And I mean saturation. It's not just spot. It is, and it happens every few weeks. You said something about my understanding was you don't spray when it's windy. Is that correct? Although, is that what you said? Yeah. Yeah, when it's still. But anyway, the point is, I'm trying to say, and we have contacted the council. At least a couple of us have, and were told that it's absolutely harmless. And in fact, the man we spoke to in the Environment Department said he would be quite happy to drink it.
Look, I think that's very depressing. I did mention that there is a register for where you can register a house it's normally applied to so that there's no spraying outside of your house that are weeds growing near your fence. If you come and talk with you after the meeting, maybe we could actually see if that register could apply to that area around the Rushall Gardens.
I'm Tim Farrell from Weed Steamers. We're the ones that are doing the steam thermal weed treatments around Melbourne, assisting councils to look at alternatives. It's hard not to have a statement with the question. I suppose it's always down to cost in our communities. And I think just to clarify what we're talking about, the figures that we've put roughly to council, various council, when we really looked at what that meant, it was about 1 coffee and 1 cake per resident per year difference. With 88,000 roughly residents in this council, that was approximately, my wife worked that out and said, always the marketing guru, I think this is the real point we need to get across. What's the real cost? The cost in health, the global cost of chemical use. So that was one point. But I think I really want to commend councils. We've only been going, my partner Andy and myself are using, this is the inventor of the steam system in Australia, who's closed his large business to dedicate 17 years of his life to getting this to market because he realised the cost of what he was seeing in his industry. I'm a health professional and also a 7th generation Australian farmer, and I couldn't not do something. Andy closed his business and we brought this to Melbourne. But what you don't know is that we're already talking with 7 or 8 councils. It's the people on the ground that are saying to us, we really don't want to use this stuff. We've got kids, but it's legal. Our government regulators say it's safe. To get the support to change drastically or in a shorter period of time, there would have to be a legislative change. From what I understand, our legislators survive off funding coming from regulating chemicals, which means about 50% of their income at the moment comes from glyphosate. So we're told. That's probably not going to happen quick. But what I want to know, I had some medico-legal experience. So even without, this is to the whole panel, to assist our councils, who are always concerned about health and safety, as they should be for their residents and workers, if today someone bought a case that was directly related to glyphosate exposure, with the correlations between glyphosate exposure with proper testing, would a case stand up against glyphosate? Would a case be able to be proven with the current state of our scientific knowledge that glyphosate is not safe? The reason because of this is once, that doesn't have to be regulated. If you can prove it's not safe, there's a duty of care that goes beyond. That's a legal duty of care, not a government legislature. It doesn't matter what the government says. If you can say it's not safe, there's a whole different ballgame, and councils will get a lot more support for the extra funding.
I think the trouble is with court cases, and when we look at them, they almost invariably fail. You know, I was thinking about Agent Orange, for instance, and all the Vietnam vets and all the people damaged by 2,4-D, and there were court cases, they all lost. Years later, the data comes out, but have they compensated any of the Vietnamese, the Vietnam vets for it? No. And you look at asbestos. I think is one of the best ones. Those cases went on. We knew in the 1920s and 30s the dangers of asbestos, and what's happening now? There are cases now, but it drags on for decades. More people have died, before they've actually got it. So the way the legal system works, it'll be decades before we win a case, and it will be millions of dollars. So it's not the way to do it. I think the only way to do it is the way you're doing it now, is getting progressive councils like this to set the example and for others to follow, and put pressure on your councils. Do it grassroots. If you do it up the top, they've got the lawyers. They can beat you. They've got unbelievable funds. Do it down below. Do it as grassroots movements. And like Tom said, go into the shops and demand chemical-free food. Demand of your councils to, what's $150,000 extra in the budget for people's health for steam weeding? In the scheme of things, it's worth every cent. So demand it.
I'm a farmer. I farm about 1,150 acres up in a grain-growing area. I'm a biodynamic farmer. Now, the country all around me is literally saturated with Roundup. I'd like to ask this gentleman, Andre, I've forgotten your name, sorry, how do you rehabilitate this land that has been saturated with Roundup?
He wants to know what's the remediation for Roundup that's accumulated in the soil and the environment. I have to move once in a while. At my age, that's the only way you can tell the difference between rigor mortis and arthritis. So if I can get a kink out here for a minute. I have 20 years of research trying to answer that question. The fastest way would be biologically. In other words, to have organisms that will degrade it. That's been really difficult to find. The phosphite carbon bond is a very difficult one to degrade biologically. It happens, but not predictably. There are groups now that are actively working on it. I know of 4 or 5 in the States. There are others in Europe. You probably have organizations here, but it's a biological cocktail. And those in the initial trials, at least for the last 2 or 3 years, looking really promising. I've seen several of them that will move 9 pounds of glyphosate out of the soil in a year. Phenomenal. There are several things that you need to do if you're producing, and that's compensate for that reduced nutrient availability for the crop. Keep your crop as healthy as possible by keeping the nutrition there. Recognize the reduced nutrient uptake efficiency of the genetically engineered plant if you're using canola, and then also the impact of the glyphosate however you're using it. Keep it up. Keep your glyphosate in the soil immobilized by making sure that you have the calcium, magnesium, iron, other minerals that are available. We use a lot of gypsum just for that purpose. In the plant, we use foliar spray of manganese and zinc. Zinc's more mobile. It will detoxify the glyphosate in those growth points so that you can compensate for that reduced yield that you're going to get otherwise. In cotton, you can lose 50% of the bolls if you don't do that. So compensate for that. Recognize what's happening. Get your biology up. And above all, use it judiciously. We've been told it's so safe that we've indiscriminately applied it throughout the environment. If you're going to use it very judiciously. Make sure you have the proper protection. But the biological cocktails right now appear to be the most promising. That's how we get rid of oil spills and other things. Except degrading an oil product, crude oil is pretty simple by comparison to degrading the phosphonate types of chemicals. But those are the approaches. There's a lot of research going on. Much of it looks really promising. It's not nearly as hopeless as it looked 4 or 5 years ago. So. What was the question?
The humic acid. Did you mention that?
Yes. In fact, in Europe, they're marketing a humic acid clinoptilolite. It's a zeolite farm. They market it in capsules because the zeolite crystals aren't really water soluble, but they have a tremendous capacity to catch glyphosate and move it out of the system. And so they're marketing that. It has had remarkable benefits for restoring fertility in animals and people. So that you can pull the glyphosate out. It takes 3 or 4 months for people. It takes about the same length of time for a pig. It takes up to 8 months for a cow. Some of our producers actually mix it in the feed, where they're starting to have fertility problems and in dairies and that, and seeing a reversal of a lot of that by pulling the glyphosate out of the system there.
Can I firstly say, my name's Rosemary Cousin. I'm an organic farmer from the Strzelecki Ranges. My husband and I have been there for 5 years, and we've been really trying to find out true research on glyphosates and the impact. And it seems that Monsanto stopped their research prior to only after a short number of years, and never showed the long-term studies. So I think there should be a very strong demand for longitudinal studies on all of the chemical producers, and that should be something that all consumers should be urging right now. That's the first thing I'd say. The second thing is I'm an urban and regional planner, and I work with local governments. Sorry, but I don't believe that local governments are all as good as you. I see them spraying it everywhere, absolutely everywhere. Slip, slop, slap. It's just out there. You see ordinary people going in Bunnings. You also see them, just the guidance that they get in Bunnings about what chemical problems there are. Oh, no, it's fine. I would really strongly urge that there be a panel or a deputation to the Municipal Association of Victoria and the Australian Local Government Association. Both of those organisations are incredibly powerful with local governments, and they should actually be far more systematically attacked. I mean, no, they're not concerned with occupational health and safety, not from what I see. The workers do not have any protective footwear. They have nothing on their faces or hands, let alone windy days. Hello, they just don't take any notice. It's just when the schedule is. I'm sorry about that. Third thing I'd like to say is I read the Weekly Times. The Weekly Times is our farmers' magazine, if you like. Unfortunately, I'd love city people to read it as well. The Weekly Times have advertisements which completely go against your comment. They recommend glyphosate. They recommend Roundup to actually try to increase moisture content in the soils. It's it's crap. But no one's challenging it. I mean, they're out there selling rubbish. Sorry. Thank you. Please, a deputation to those associations.
Hello, everyone, and hello to the panel. Now, Dr. Don, thank you so much for coming here. I've been looking at all your videos for the last couple of nights when I learnt about this meeting. I've sent lots of information to the Office of Gene Technology Regulator. Google that website and inundate the managers there, the scientists, that you are against genetically modified organisms. There's no room to negotiate anything to do with genetically modified organisms. Another thing that you can do, what I've been doing for decades, is you call up every company and ask them, do they have any GM products in their goods? And if they say over the phone, which would be like a call centre, ask them, could they put that on paper and keep a record of it? Now, the other thing too is with local councils, under the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution, you have a responsibility, a duty of care, a fiduciary care to do everything to not use Roundup. Okay, it's got nothing to do with money because councils have got $1 million that they save up. Now, local councils need to spend that money not for a rainy day, not when people become sick, but as a preventative measures. As I've said, you've got a fiduciary care. And Dr. Don, again, thank you so much. Thank you for the video in relation to the bees. Now, people, we don't need to analyse any more about, the cost. If our bees are dying, that means we are dying. And another thing, as a mum, for like 40 years in my research, I'm not a scientist. What I would like to ask any elected representative, right, or any individual scientist, what is the cumulative effect of all these toxins that have been given to us without our consent and understanding? People are not well. People are sick. Okay? So that's one thing, all councils. And what I did with my email with Dr. Don's videos, I've started to send this information to the 79 councils here in Victoria. So my email contact list is, I've got also over Australia-wide. There's something about 546 local councils throughout Australia. So that's what we can do, be proactive. We can, we are the customers and we are the constituents. We are the Supreme Control Authority. Start writing letters to your local representatives as well.
So, the last speaker was calling on us to act. We have the flyer, Local Champions for Chemical-Free Councils. We've already had quite a lot of action on this, but please take the flyer. It's got a contact address on it. It's got some basic information. Please do contact your own local council. We can help you to do more. The VLGA, we can contact one of the peak bodies, and the MAV. So if you're willing to act, put your name on the list there, or we've already got your names. We'll be in touch. And we need a champion in each council to find a local councillor like Sam who is sympathetic, who is willing to act and to work with the council to get the weed steamers, to look at other options and to take action. We also drafted a motion for this evening which we could take forward about some of the things that need to happen about the reduction of chemicals nationally, in the state and locally. So I'm going to read this. It's a little bit long, but I'm going to do it point by point. And I'd like your assent to take this motion and to send it off to our governments. So if you'll just bear with me, I'll ask you to listen to each point, to give us your assent, and we'll say that it came collectively from this meeting. So the preamble is, with public health, safety and environmental impacts in mind, we call on all federal, state and local governments to do the following. 1, require the review and re-registration of all synthetic agrochemicals. Great. 2, phase out the use of synthetic pesticides in all public places. Thank you. 3, eliminate agrochemical residues from food by reforming the regulators. 4, review maximum residue levels and acceptable daily intakes of chemical residues in food. Thank you. 5, independently validate all company-generated data used in agrochemical and food safety assessments. Yes? 6,
protect public health by responding to evidence of harm. Great. And the last one, report to the people on these matters transparently, openly, and regularly. Thank you very much. So thank you for coming. Thank you for being willing to take up the cudgels. We can act together, we can act in our own local council areas, we can keep this in the forefront of our mind, we can change governments, policies and actions. So let's get on with it. And I'll ask Dure to just wind up.
Just, can you put your hands together for these amazing people? All of you. Thank you. And our special guest, thank you for your wisdom.